This
I
conference will
extend my
now be
warm welcome
recorded.
to I extend my warm welcome to each one of you in this August gathering of participants from the most renowned power sector industries, utilities, individual power consultants, a few software companies, faculties, students from varsities and educational institutions, private coaching trainers from across the globe and India, my other colleagues from PRDC, and my beloved organizing committee members. I heartily welcome you all once again in this wonderful evening. Today marks the inauguration of My Power webinar series from PRDC, and it's the first session is grid islanding simulation studies and relay settings using My Power. I also have Mr. Giri Prativadi, the Chief Technical Officer and Head of the SEG Division of PRDC, as the other moderator who will address this gathering towards the end of the program. I would like to share the agenda of today's evening, which will appear in your it's my duty to share to all the participants like do's and don'ts while being in the webinar. I kindly request to ourselves and the other participants mobiles on silent and also remain out while the program is in mute while in progress. Exclusive slot dedicated for the question and answers that you might have as you go to can be type program and and critical questions in the chat. Please respond to entering in only the chat box. And I request all of you to stay till the end of the program via your email, which you can use and share your experience. And if there's anything that we could better from our side, we would love to enhance your learning experience. With that short instructions, I would love to share a few words about PRDC. Power Research and Development Consultants Private Limited started humbly in the year in 1994. It's one of the largest power system consulting firms, which has its footprints vastly along the length and breadth of India and almost 123 countries across the globe. We foster, innovate, and provide world-class consultations across power system consulting, solutions, software, also power system training in the terms of the verticals that we address. We also cater to the consumer segments in power sector, ranging from power generation, transmission, distribution, and also a few of the regulatory commissions alike. We have served various investors such as bulk power consuming industries that include oil and gas, steel, cement, aluminium, sugar, paper mills, textile manufacturers, chemical and fertilizers, and the processing plants which have power issues to tackle. Now coming on to the webinar, let me share a few words about the webinar series. The series includes 5 to 6 topics, among which we are here to listen to the first topic. Understanding simulation studies and relay setting signature software product. I am glad to share that this batch is very privileged to who is the chief architect and the master brain, Dr. Sri Nagaraja Ramappa, who is the chief brain behind the product MyPower. MyPower is driven system analysis engine and professional systems to stability and caters to the needs of power system planners and operation engineers alike. As it is developed in Windows platform with professionally designed GUI and centralized databases, the product is highly interactive and user-friendly that serves better at your day-to-day work for all the professionals. It has also been evolving with the needs of the market and clients and has attained maturity and stability. And the current version of the market available is MyPower 10.1. With that, I am also glad to introduce to everyone our renowned speaker, Dr. Nagaraja. He is the founder and the managing director of PRDC. He holds an ME as well as a PhD in power systems from the very renowned institute, Indian Institute of Sciences, Bangalore. He completed that in the year 1988 and started the company in 19. And he also started the MyPower flagship product. He's the architecture, design, and development of MyPower product. He has served a lot of utilities, industries, consultants, and varsities with his huge knowledge and practical experience. His areas of interest includes computing, power system analysis, simulations, SCADA systems and energy management systems, development of algorithms for real-time power system simulation and control, power engineering education, and power system protection. He has also authored several technical papers and conducted a number of workshops, conferences, and seminars throughout the world. With that short introduction of our beloved MD, I will now hand the control to Dr.
Thank you, Divyakala. Can I have my screen? Can I share my screen now?
So you can.
I think someone has to make me the presenter so that I can share my screens. Are you able to see my screen, everyone?
Yes, sir.
Yeah,
Yes, sir.
Muted.
Yes, sir. It's visible.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Good evening to all. I welcome you for this webinar series on the various functionalities of the MyPower software. And in this webinar series, we are not just trying to understand what is this MyPower software, but we are also trying to understand the various functionalities and also the power system concepts. As we have discussed, PIDC has got 4 verticals. One is the power system consulting, the other one is the power system software development. Then we have the embedded solutions, where we develop the know-how for the various numerical relays. Then we also have the power system training, where we conduct various training programs for almost all the utilities and also the educational institutions. If you look at our power system software solution stack, we have at the bottom the MyPower core engine. And using this core engine, we'll be able to do almost all the power system analysis, starting from the nanosecond transients, electromagnetic transient. And over and above that, we have the MyPower user interaction layer. Then we have the protection setting calculation tool and the protection database management system. Both put together, they form the complete life cycle management of the protection relays. Using the PSCT and PDMS, we can have the life cycle management of the protection relays. Then we have the automated fault tunnel system, where whenever a fault occurs in the system, it collects the COMTRADE file and does the analysis, so that within no time we will be able to find out what type of fault it is, whether the backup has operated before the primary. Then we have the asset management also, where we will be able to do the maintenance management of the various protection related equipment and also the breaker maintenance. We have the geographical information system enabled MyPower network analysis software. Using all these tools, we can do the generation, transmission, and also the distribution system analysis. And over and above that, we can also give the smart grid interface and also the smart grid solutions. Using these tools, we can do the planning, operation, and also the analytics, and we can integrate the software to any third party. This is how actually the various solutions of the MyPower and also the other products of PRDC are placed. Now coming to the today's talk, we are going to discuss the system behavior during the different types of the disturbances. Basically, this is a islanding scheme, how to design the islanding scheme. Whenever you have a captive power plant interconnected with the system, how to design a islanding scheme. Therefore, we'll try to understand various system behavior during the various disturbance. Then we'll try to see the application of the numerical relays to track the system disturbances, how we can apply the numerical relays, by which we can try to see how best we can identify that there is a disturbance in the grid and we can isolate the fault, how to arrive at the settings based upon the various simulation studies that we will try to see, post-islanding measure. Yes, we got islanded, there can be surplus generation in the system or there can be surplus load in the system. Therefore, whenever there is a mismatch between the demand and the generation, how to protect the system, how to isolate or how to ensure that actually the system stability and the security is ensured. That is what we try to do here. Then maximization of the pyramid-like functions of the numerical relays. If you look at the numerical relays, it has got protection, monitoring, and control. Earlier, if you see a numerical relay, it was only the conventional relay, it was only doing the protection. Today we have a relay has got three phases, that is the protection, monitoring, and also the control. Therefore, we are able to identify how best we can do using the same functionalities, how we can achieve that proper islanding is ensured. Why we require grid interconnection? Basically, the deregulation in the power sector, more and more industries are setting up the captive power plants, which we have seen. And in the past, in India, if you see, we had a lot more industries setting up the captive power plant, CPP. Today, they are also getting interconnected with the grid so that they can have the short-term or the long-term open access also, the excess power can be sold. Wherever we have got the fluctuating loads, for example, we have the electric arc furnace load or the rolling mill load, corresponding to those loads, it becomes so difficult without the grid support. If you want to start a very large motor, for example, in one of the steel plant, we have got actually the 2 into 8 megawatt of oxygen plant motors. These motors are started as a induction motors. Afterwards, they become actually run as the induction generators. Therefore, initially those motors are synchronous machines are also started as the induction motors, and then actually they are converted. They are actually made run in terms of the induction generators, are actually the synchronous machines. Therefore, the starting is one of the challenge. During those conditions also, you require the grid support. Whenever you would like to have a grid support, it is going to give one more reliable supply so that for the system emergencies, black start, therefore the grid interconnection is a must. Also, as I told you, the third-party power transfer or the open access is also possible with that. So that you can see here, if at all I have a captive power plant with the connection to the grid, it is possible to have the third-party power transfer, open access, so that actually you will be able to seamlessly operate our system, which implies grid interconnection is a must for most of the captive power plants. There are good amount of challenges, that is, how quickly the fault can be isolated without affecting the production. In most of the industries I have seen, the importance to the electrical engineers are given, or the plant, captive power plant operations, the importance is given only there is a major problem in the system, or whenever there is a production loss. Otherwise, with the due respect to the mechanical and also the metallurgical engineers, I find that actually there is always a negligence in terms of the electrical engineers' importance given to the captive power plant and also the plant head for that, because they think that electrical, whenever you just interconnect, power is available. Therefore, they think that actually it is not that important department. But whenever a fault occurs, whenever there is a production loss, whenever there is a equipment failure, then actually the problem gets accelerated. Therefore, the grid synchronization is essential for process industries with CPP. And success rate of getting the islanded from the grid for the major disturbance in the grid. That is, whenever a disturbance occurs in the grid, how I am able to get isolated. That is very, very important. And what are the issues in the grid islanding? One thing is, I can have a very sensitive setting so that actually, whenever there is any disturbance in the grid, I can get isolated. But what is the disadvantage? Disadvantage is, whenever I get isolated, if my demand is more, I'm going to do the load shedding. If my generation is more, I have to do the generator tripping. Therefore, I'm losing either the generation or the load. Therefore, I cannot have very sensitive grid connectivity or the islanding. How to incorporate state-of-the-art numerical relays so that having one grid islanding relay, a numerical relay, maybe like P341, how best I will be able to ensure that I get connected with the grid most of the time, and whenever the grid fails, then only island is said to be successful. Therefore, that is what we try to see in case of a successful islanding. Therefore, the successful grid islanding means application of the numerical relays so that various setting calculation of the relays are very important, and we have to ensure that corresponding to each and every relay setting, the various simulation studies are conducted. Then we'll be able to ensure that actually proper islanding is there. When we tell that actually my islanding rate is successful, following the grid disturbance, islanding should occur only if the grid could not survive. If the grid survives, I get islanded. Then actually the sensitivity of my islanding, it is very, very sensitive. What it implies, I am unnecessarily losing the grid. After the islanding, all the generators within the plant should survive. We have to ensure that within the plant, the maximum generation is surviving and also the maximum production is surviving. There should not be any uncalled tripping in the plant. Yes, if there is an excess load, I can trip the load, but there should not be any uncalled tripping in the plant. This is very, very important in case of a grid islanding. Most of the time, it so happens that there is a grid islanding, but in the CPP captive power plant, somewhere in the corner, there is one process motor. If a process motor, which is very, very vital, trips because of the grid disturbance and there is a low voltage, there can be a cascaded tripping. Therefore, even though you have successfully islanded some other motor, auxiliary in the auxiliary power plant, some other motor may trip, and it may so happen that actually the entire plant may collapse. Therefore, it is not just your electrical system. We also need to see what is the behavior of your process systems also. So that one important process which has got an interconnection with your captive power plant should not trip. If it trips, it may so happen that even if the successful islanding, the entire CPP may come down. Therefore, that is very, very important for us to understand. Therefore, the various grid islanding steps, single or set of the protective relays connected at the islanding bus will sense the disturbance in the grid. What it means is, there will be one or two relays. It can be a one simple grid islanding relay, or there can be a set of relays which are going to identify what is the disturbance in the grid. Once we identify what is the type of the disturbance in the grid, you'll be able to find out how best you'll be able to island. Then we need to give the trip command to the islanding breaker whenever the grid disturbance exceeds a set limit. Therefore, this is very important. How to give the trip command to the islanding breaker? Therefore, there are set parameters are there, and when those set parameters are violating, then trip command is given to the islanding breaker. Then after the islanding breaker is opened, on the CPP side, loads are isolated from the grid. Assume that there is excess load, then actually some of the loads have to be isolated from the grid. That is also equally important. The outcome of the grid islanding is therefore, the load on the grid side will survive if the grid survives. What it means is, we can try to ensure that actually grid is there and also the captive power plant is there. Assume that the islanding breaker is in between the grid bus and also the captive power plant bus. That is the essential load and the non-essential load. Then load on the grid side will survive if the grid survives. If the grid is not surviving following the disturbance, only part of the plant load on the grid side gets affected. So that on the plant side, everything will be surviving. On the captive power plant side, whatever the loads are there, they will be surviving. The process of disconnecting the CPP from the utility system, which is what we call it as islanding of the captive power plant. And in an industrial system, there can be one main island, that is actually the grid and also the entire process plant getting islanded. That is the main islanding scheme. And there can be sub-islanding scheme also. In the sub-islanding scheme, it so happens that whenever there is a major disturbance is there, and with the main islanding scheme, if the grid or the captive power plant doesn't survive, it may so happen that actually CPP along with some essential load, a part of the CPP, there can be 2 or 3 generators, a part of the generators along with their essential load can get separated out. That is what we call it as sub-islandings. Therefore, the islanding helps both the utility as well as the captive power plant. This is what is important for us to understand, that what are the benefits to the utility? Assume that actually a utility has got the responsibility of maintaining the grid and there is a disturbance in the grid. They don't want the captive power plant to contribute to the grid disturbances. They would like to ensure that actually that one more additional power plant or a captive power plant is not actually interfering with the grid disturbance. Therefore, they would like to ensure that, therefore, for the utility also, they would like to ensure that whenever there is a problem in the grid, CPP gets isolated. Why? Because the power source is not under their control. They would like to ensure that actually the captive power plant gets isolated. And utility is in the process of solving their problem. They don't want another power source on which they don't have any control. Therefore, they would like to ensure that there is a proper islanding scheme by which one can get islanded. Once the CPP is disconnected from the grid, it becomes easier for the utility to locate the end source of the disturbance and rectify the same. Therefore, it so happens that whenever the captive power plant is there and there is a major disturbance in the grid, if the CPP gets isolated, therefore most of the utility, whenever they have an industrial system getting connected and there is a captive power plant, they ensure that actually that there is a proper islanding scheme. The utility will insist on the installation of the grid islanding scheme so that the CPP gets separated out. This is very important for us to understand. What are the benefits to the captive power plant? So that the major grid disturbance and the uncertainty in the grid will not get reflected and there is no major problem to the generators and the process. Therefore, actually the grid islanding is going to bring lot of benefit to the captive power plant. And the CPP generator from the grid disturbances we need to protect. There can be a prolonged under voltage, prolonged over voltage, prolonged under frequency. We need to ensure that CPP captive power plant generators are getting protected from these disturbances. There is a complete insulation of the disturbances to these generators. And whenever the utility fails by opening the islanding breaker, so that still we can continue to have the power supply. Assume that actually the grid line has tripped. Then it may so happen that CPP along with its own load will be able to survive. And the CPP and it may cause actually the extreme damages to the captive power plant. So that actually whenever there is a major disturbance is there, and then if we are not able to survive, there can be a major problem to our generators. Therefore, we need to ensure that even the CPP gets isolated. Therefore, the grid islanding scheme is going to give the benefit both for the utility and also for the captive power plant. Now, let us see what are these grid disturbances. The grid disturbances can be lot many. One is the prolonged under voltage in the system. As per the grid code, for example, 220 kV bus voltage, acceptable voltage limit is say 198 kV to 245 kV, 220 kV bus voltage. When the voltage goes below 198 kV, say for example, it is staying at 190 kV for a long period. This is a prolonged under voltage. There is a prolonged over voltage. Acceptable voltage limit is 245 kV. If the grid voltage has become 250 kV for a long period, that is what we call it as prolonged over voltage. What it means is, for the transient voltages, variation in the voltages, I should not get islanded. This is very important for us to understand. Whenever there is a transient voltage variation, we should never get islanded. And there is a prolonged under voltage. Prolonged under frequency, prolonged over frequency. Today, if you see our grid frequency, we are almost operating from 49.9 Hertz or 49.7 Hertz to 50.05. Very narrow bandwidth we are operating. Thanks to availability based tariff, subsequently the various measures, and today the DSM, deviation settlement mechanism, and also the frequency control, we are able to have a very narrow grid frequency bandwidth. The generator is going to trip. Under frequency setting of the generator is 47.5 Hertz, maybe 1 to 2 seconds time delay. Over frequency of the generator is 52.5 Hertz with again 1 to 2 seconds time delay. Therefore, if the grid frequency is low for a long period, it may so happen that actually my generator may trip, because my generator, the captive power plant under frequency, over frequency is there, settings are there to protect my generator. Therefore, assume that actually prolonged under frequency, maybe say for example 48.5 Hertz for a long period, or prolonged over frequency, say for example 51.5 Hertz or 51 Hertz for a long period, then we get separated out. We should not separate out at 47.5 Hertz, because after separating from the grid, we should have the enough of timing for me to do the load shedding, and then actually the generator should trip. Therefore, there should be enough of frequency and also the time period available for us to do the load shedding. Therefore, we should not try to have the under frequency setting at the grid islanding at 47.5 Hertz. There is a rapid fall or rise in the frequency, that is df by dt, or rate of change of frequency minus df by dt, that is a rise in the frequency or fall in the frequency. There is a power failure in the grid. assume that the grid itself has been lost. There is a fault in the grid. Again, the fault can be at many places. Therefore, depending upon where the fault has occurred, we should again get islanded depending upon what is the quantum of fault current we are feeding to the grid. There is a vectorial shift in the voltage. What we mean by this vectorial shift? Assume that we are either importing or exporting the power and we have synchronized with the grid. As soon actually the grid is lost, there can be a sudden voltage shift. That is what we call it as a vectorial shift in the voltage. Within no time, that vectorial shift in the voltage is sensed. Using that also, it is possible to find out that actually there is some problem in the grid. And based upon that, we can try to ensure that islanding happens. Therefore, these are the various measures by which actually the grid islanding can happen. I have seen many places, momentary voltage dip, islanding relay operates, it is wrong. Momentary frequency dip, islanding relay operates, it is wrong. Therefore, we have to ensure that for the momentary voltage or the frequency dip, that is the transient voltage or the frequency variation, the grid islanding relay should never operate. This is what we call it as voltage vector jump. The advantage is it can operate more quickly than the voltage or the frequency protection because it is without any time delay. I cannot have a under voltage or under frequency without a time delay. But this voltage vector jump happens whenever the grid is lost. Immediately there is a voltage vector jump. Therefore, without any time delay, we'll be able to implement this voltage vector shift relay functionality. And it should not operate for the single phase fault because whenever there is a single phase fault in the grid, okay, or the three phase fault far away from your captive power plant bus, it may so happen that this vector shift angle will be less. Therefore, I should not trip. Normally, the setting for this is somewhere around 5 to 7 degrees. Therefore, we need to do the system studies to find out whenever a fault occurs in the system, vector shift relay should not operate. But whenever the grid line is open or the grid side farther end breaker gets open, that time actually there is a vector shift using which actually we can try to ensure that the proper islanding is there. But this fails when actually the initial power flow in the captive power plant to the grid line is 0, initial power flow, then actually you may not see the vector shift. Therefore, the vector shift relay may not operate. Then actually various other functions we need to look into and ensure that actually the proper islanding is there. But whenever there is a major grid loss or whenever there is actually the major fluctuation in the power, means you are either exporting the power or importing the power, and then that time the grid is lost, then the voltage vector jump happens and you can ensure that actually this relay is going to operate. What are the grid disturbances effect? CPP may experience a large variation in the power at the islanding breaker, or it may see the continued low voltage of the grid will result in the operation of the CPP generators as low power factor, and it may so happen that actually if the voltage is very low, okay, then actually it may so happen that the machine start absorbing the reactive power, then the loss of excitation type of relay may operate because it is going to reverse reactive power and it can damage the generators. It may try to draw very large reactive power. Therefore, these are the problems that are associated whenever actually we don't get islanded. Therefore, you can have a single numerical relay or a set of relays by which actually the islanding can happen. Therefore, an overloaded grid will give rise to the fall in the frequency. Therefore, the frequency fall will be there. Therefore, if there is a prolonged under frequency, we can have the islanding. A fault in the grid will give rise to the fall in the voltage. Therefore, whenever there is a fault in the grid, it can give rise to the fall in the voltage. Therefore, even that we can try to ensure. loss of grid will result in the sudden change in the power at the islanding breaker. Therefore, vectorial voltage vector shift can happen, or there is a sudden variation in the power. You can try to quantify the jump in the power, that is actually the magnitude change, and by which also you can find out that there is some problem, and you can also get islanded. Loss of grid also will result in the sudden change in the vectorial shift in the voltage. Based upon these things, we'll be able to ensure that proper islanding happens. There are 2-3 other essential things that are very important when we get islanded. One is, normally the captive power plant, CPPs, they will be operating in the constant power mode. What it means? I am not in the free governing mode, or I don't want to change my power for the frequency variation in the grid. Therefore, the machine group characteristic, that is the frequency control, will not come into picture. Therefore, in the governor loop, there is a changeover switch which is going to change the governor control from the constant power mode to the constant frequency control. Therefore, what is very important here is, as soon as the islanding breaker operates, the signal should be taken. I think I want everyone to mute. There is a lot of noise. Okay, fine. Thank you. Therefore, there is one islanding breaker. As soon as actually the islanding breaker operates, signal of that should be taken. Signal of that islanding breaker should be taken, so that actually it is possible to ensure that actually from the constant power mode, I am going to the constant frequency mode of operation. That is possible provided actually the islanding breaker signal is taken for our governor control action. There can be different modes. I have just taken this example to give a illustration for a very small system. Afterwards, we'll try to look into a large system. Therefore, one is actually the captive power plants, 5 megawatt, 2 megawatt, 4 megawatt, a CPP with a load of about 13 megawatt. Grid side load is about 10 megawatt. In this case, from the grid, we are importing 12 megawatt, load is 10 megawatt. Therefore, the islanding breaker, there is a flow of about 2 megawatt into the system. During this condition, if the islanding occurs, depending upon what is the cushion available on my generators, whether they can try to give additional cushion is available on my all the generators. If there is actually a slight cushion is available, then actually I need not do the load shedding. If there is no cushion available, then we need to do the load shedding. Therefore, the logic for this thing can be grid to CPP side flow, take negative of that. CPP side sudden generation load margin, how much actually the margin is available. For example, load margin is 0 here. Load margin is 0 here. I don't have any margin. Grid to CPP side flow is 2 megawatt now. Grid to CPP side flow is 2 megawatt. Therefore, it is minus 2 megawatt comes here. Set value is 0, for example. Set value is 0. Therefore, it is less than set value. Therefore, this logic becomes 1. Islanding breaker trip is 1. Therefore, trip non-essential loads. Therefore, it is not just the islanding scheme logic. Over and above that, we also try to design our own control logic so that actually the islanding can happen, and post islanding, the load tripping can happen. Assume that actually the CPP side sudden generation loading margin is 3 megawatt. Grid to side CPP is minus 2 megawatt. Okay, that is what actually the 2 megawatt is there. Therefore, minus 2, 1 megawatt comes here. Okay, therefore 3 megawatt, and set value is 0. Assume that the set value is still 0. This is 1 megawatt, which implies there is no islanding, no load shedding. In this case, for example, there is a 2 megawatt excess there, and then the islanding breaker trips. there will not be any problem. CPP side load is 13 megawatt. But it may so happen that actually, instead of 2 megawatt, you are pushing about 5 megawatt to the grid side. Assume that this TG, okay, the total generation is much higher and about 5 megawatt is being tripped here, pushed to the grid. 5 megawatt is pushed to the grid. Then, after the islanding, there is a excess generation here. There is a excess generation. That time, it may be worthwhile tripping TG1 also, or some other generator also. Therefore, all depends upon what is your governor control, how actually your turbine governor is performing. Based upon that, it is possible to ensure that proper islanding happens.